Welcome back, HC Nation. Hey, this is another episode of the Adventure Box Podcast. I'm so excited to see you here because we're going to be talking about something. This is the ancient civilization that I love. This is the number one creme de la creme, top of the line ancient civilization that is for most people. It is ancient Rome. So ancient Rome, wow, there's just so much to talk about. First, I wanted to tell you that this is all brought to you by Historical Conquest, which is a history game. You don't have to know anything about history. You don't even have to like history. It's just a really fun game. But guaranteed, you'll actually learn things about history as you play. So, let's get into it. Let's get started. Okay, so first off, today we're going to go back to the very roots of Rome. We're going to start off very, very early. We're going to go to, now we had just talked about Greece last week. We just finished our Greek unit, and now we're coming over to Rome. There is so much intrigue in here that no one ever talks about. I'm going to go through all of those, whether it's things that were happening in Jerusalem, whether it was things that were happening from Greece. You know, Rome might have conquered Greece, which we're going to talk about, but in the end, didn't Greece conquer Rome? You're like, wait a second, what? I've never heard that one. No, you haven't. There's so many mysteries built up into this, and we're going to talk about all these things in the next month. So this whole month of April, we're going to be talking about Rome. And we're probably going to go just a week into May as well. But here we go. So let's start talking about it. Rome itself is a city born from mystery, molded from the neighboring kingdoms and cultures. Okay, so when you think of Rome, most people think of all of Italy, but it was not that way way back in the roots. Actually, during the early times, this was Rome. It had all of these different groups that were living here, including the Greeks, Cartha, I'm going to not butcher some of these names, Samnites, all these, the Celts up here. So it was so full of all different people. And yet we are talking about Rome itself. Rome was this little area right here in the very beginning. And actually, if you want to go even further back, which we're going to be talking about today, that didn't exist. It was not a tribe like that. So we're going to talk about the myth and the truth. So the traditional founding of Rome was in 1753 BC. Now, we're going to be talking about what that date actually means. Then we're going to be talking about part 2. We're going to be talking about the legend of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by wolves. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, we're going to talk about the myth and part national identity that comes from that. Third part we're going to be talking about today is the real world settlement of cultures and influence that shaped Rome. Sorry, that shaped Rome, and that includes the, let's see, they're called the Etruscans, the Latins, and the Greeks. So as you can see some of these here. The Latins are basically a mixture of some of these. So let's go to it. Let's get in. Okay, so let's begin with the legends that every Roman knew by heart. It's the tale of the twins. Well, you know what? Yeah, we're going to do that first, and then we'll go into what that date actually meant of 1753. So let's go into the legend. It's just more interesting for me. This is a great start. So the national identity was of this guy. Wait, what? Half human, half wolf? No. This might be what you think about when it says that they were raised by wolves, that the twins, the two brothers, were raised by wolves. But let's go into some of the actual history. So every great civilization has its origin story. For Rome, that story begins not with politics or battles, but with a myth filled with betrayal, gods, and wild animals. So let's go into it. According to Roman mythology, Romulus and Remus, they were twin sons of Rhea Silvia, who was a Vestal Virgin. Okay, so virgin. Oh, so they're saying that Romulus and Remus were born of a virgin. Huh, interesting. Because it was Rhea Silvia and Mars, the god of war, that met together and had a child together. Their birth, being Romulus and Remus, has seen... It was basically a threat to King Amulius, their great uncle, who ordered them killed. So the infants were placed in a basket and sent down the Tiber River, where they were found and nurtured by a she-wolf, by a mother wolf, and later raised by a shepherd named Faustulus. So as young men, they discovered their true identity, and because of that, killed Amulius, their uncle, and restored their grandfather Numitor to the throne in that little area that I showed you. It was called, that area was called Alba Longa. But here's where it gets tragic. Here's where it really irked a lot of people when they hear this, because the twins decided to build a city of their own. Okay, Rome. This is the city that they decided to live in. They loved that city. They wanted to do great things with the city, but a dispute broke out. Basically, Romulus was building a wall for the city. He's building this grand wall, but because it was one person, it wasn't so grand. So the funny thing is one of the brothers, Remus, decided to make fun of his brother. So he jumped from one side, said, "Hey, look, I'm one side of the wall," and jumped to the other. "Hey, look, I'm the other side of the wall." Yeah, this didn't set very well with Romulus. So in a fit of rage, Romulus killed Remus, becoming the sole founder of Rome 753 BC on what is known as Palatine Hill. So Palatine Hill is basically where the wall was, and that's where Remus dies. Now, it's still in the mythology. But where does that mythology, where is it true and where is it false? There's no telling. There's actually no telling. No one actually knows. Now, historians have ideas of where that is true and where that is false, but they don't actually have it. So this tale is more than a story. It's a symbol. Rome was born of divine will, which would be like Mars and his virgin Vestal. But it was also built off of violence, brotherly rivalries, and this theme basically goes on for a long time. So let's talk about where myth meets history. So what do we know about Rome's actual founding in 753 BC? That year was later fixed by Roman historians like Livy, which we'll talk about, and Varro. So as the city's official birthday, 1753. But archaeological evidence basically suggests that something more gradual happened. And we're going to go through that just a little bit. So, geography and the 7 hills. Rome developed around the Tiber River. The Tiber River, actually, you know what? Let's bring up a map. I usually have a map here. For some reason, I did not put the map. So I'm going to add it there. Bring it over. And here we go. Tiber River. While it's populating, well, if I can, bring it down to normal size. There we go. Okay, the Tiber River. Look at that. Rome, Tiber River. So this was a place near the coast where the Tiber River came in. Very green and lush. Great place to start a civilization. Okay, so it's basically here that they decided to build, and this area provided a few things. Strategic advantage was number 1. Easy access to the sea. Another thing, fertile land for agriculture. And a natural defense because of the hills around it. So I've actually been to Rome. It is a fantastic city. But you know what's interesting? I was there for what, 5 days, traveling all over the place. I never got to the outskirts of it because it's so big. So if we scanned, you know what, I'm going to change views. Go down there. That's all of Rome. My travel area was probably this big. Yeah, it is so big. It goes up into the mountains that go all the way around it. So that's how big Rome is. So archaeologists have found huts and burial sites on Palatine Hill. Now, actually, I want to let's find Palatine Hill. Palatine Hill. There we go. Now, in here, smack dab, almost in the middle, Palatine Hill. Where is it? Right here. So, out of all Rome, there it is. So in Palatine Hill, they found huts and burial sites dating back to the 8th century BC, which supports the idea of a settlement forming around 753 BC. So that is one of the great things when it comes to archaeology. You can actually date some things back. Now, carbon dating is not the best. It is not, well, it is the best that we have. It is not the most accurate at times. But to know the region had multiple small villages on the hilltops. And these communities were eventually merged into this single city. So there was like village here on this hill, village here on this area, village over here, and they all merged into one. Now, does this discount that there was a Romulus? No, it does not. Does it discount that there's no actual history of Romulus beyond the myth? No, there's not. That's basically all that we've been told or found from archaeology and history. So in reality, Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, that's interesting. That's an actual phrase from like so many people have said. But it wasn't just a product of one man's vision. Maybe, maybe not. But it did grow from tribes, families, and ideas that converged into something new. And we've actually talked about this time and time again on this podcast. Most areas start off with like a family, and then it grows. As it grows, it starts bringing in other groups. And as those other groups come in, they need to find new areas. They need to expand. Take the United States. If you just had one colony start, well, then that colony would start getting more people. And all of a sudden, the more people it gets in, the more that they have to expand. Maybe not that city, but they're going to expand from there. Let's go to the Native Americans even before the colonists. You had a tribe, and they started to populate, and they had to expand. So they broke into other people, other tribes' territories, and expanded into it, and that created a lot of wars between the Native Americans. It's the same story every single time. Now, we don't do that much anymore, except if you're Russia and doing something, because right now that's basically very wrong to do at this point in time. Everyone has its distinct borders. But places like Russia decide we need to go do something like that. Anyways, so that still happens today. But at the same time, it's very rare that it actually happens these days. But back in ancient times and back up to like 1800s, it happened all the time. So let's talk about early influences. So there's three main groups: Etruscans, the Latins, and the Greeks. Okay, so to understand early Rome, we need to look beyond the Tiber River to basically the cultures that were around it. Now, again, let's bring that back up. So this is the area. Again, you had the Celts up north, you had the Etruscans, you had the Umbrians, Samnites, and so forth. Italians, the Greeks, and such. These coastal lands, we actually talked about them last month when we were talking about the Greeks. And the Greeks would settle places like here, and actually over here too. They had cities all over the coast of Italy. They had them over in Spain. They had them all around the Mediterranean because the Greeks were the #1 most powerful group. Then you also had what? you had the Sea People, which didn't exactly have a set name, but like those that were called the Philistines afterwards, like in the Bible, they were potentially the Sea People. You had people that owned the sea, or at least fought over the sea, and would attack the Greeks all the time. So here you have three main groups, though. You have the Greeks, the Latins, and the Etruscans, or Etruscans. So it's basically Italy became a compilation of all of their cultures and such. So let's go to the Latins first. Okay, the Latins were Romans' earliest ethnic group. This is basically, you call them the Indo-European people who settled in central Italy. So again, these are those people right here. These three groups. So these are, they basically built the foundation of what Italy would be, and also created the foundation of the Latin language. So these groups created the first language that would be all the Latin languages, including Spanish and Italian and basically the Romantic languages. They also created early Roman religion and their early customs. They built small farming communities, basically. That's how they grew together in a Latium region, in the Latium region. So this area that I was showing you. And this also included one place, Alba Longa, which again was Rome's mythical mother city. This is where Romulus and Remus came from. Okay, so from there, the Latin society was basically clan-based. That's how they grew together. So much like the Celtics up above, they had clans that would come together. I mean, every society had these groups. They're all called different things. In Italy, we call them clans. And they had a patriarchal order with early forms of citizenship and also communal decision-making. So citizen, being a citizen of the area, being the Latins, and or being one of these three groups, and also how to distinguish things. Remember, Greece had this as well. Most likely, these three groups right here all got it from the Greeks. Sorry, three groups right here got it from the Greeks. So their language basically evolved into Latin, which would later become the language of the Empire of Rome, the laws, and how the church communicated. So the Latins were the Roman root. This is the foundation of all of Rome. What about the Etruscans? The Etruscans, northern, we see right here in red, the Etruscans were the basically north of Rome, and they lived a mysterious and advanced civilization life. Interesting, huh? They were very advanced for their time, and it greatly influenced early Roman politics, religion, and architecture. So you basically had the Greeks, which would have an influence over Rome, and the Etruscans. Now, remember the Etruscans, especially, let's see, today's Monday, Wednesday. No, sorry, today's Tuesday. Thursday. Okay, remember them for Thursday, because we're going to be going into the early Roman Republic and how the Etruscans influenced that. So, the Etruscans ruled over Rome during the monarchical period. I think that's what it's called, the monarchical period, because there was a monarchy. It was one leader, much like the King of England and King of Spain. In fact, several early Roman kings were Etruscans, or likely them. So they introduced key concepts. So the first thing, you see all the arches that are in Roman architecture? That was them. How about the religious rituals? A lot of it was them. Now mixed with Greece as well, and we'll get into that later on. Symbolic garments, such as the toga. That's right, toga parties. Yes, that was the Etruscans. Now, their cities were well planned out. They were very wealthy, and they were skilled in metalwork and also trade. But the Etruscans, for some reason, only stayed in that little area. they didn't really take over, which they probably could have. I don't wonder why, though. The Etruscans may have ruled Rome in the north, or maybe they actually ruled the whole thing for a time. But as far as we know, they stayed mostly in this area. But their influence, even though they fell, the influence went on for a long time. Okay, let's talk about the Greeks. Now, we already talked about them for a whole month, so I'll be really fast. Okay, in the south, in the places like Naples or Sicily, were the Greek colonies, which, again, we talked about this, they came from basically them sailing over from Greece and trying to expand their land. Now, interesting enough, they did not really do this much by war as much as they landed, they made a colony. Well, look at that. They got a colony. Now, this actually had a lot of impact on everyone in the area because they did not like that these were foreigners in this land. They believed it was theirs, and anyone that was loyal to somewhere else should not apply. Now, from the Greeks, Romans adopted a lot of things. And again, we'll go over this later on. But the alphabet system, that was Greece. Gods and myths, mostly Greece. Mixture of Greece and Etruscans. Architecture, columns, temples, mostly Greeks. How about philosophy or a model of government? Yes, that also influenced Rome, mixed with Etruscans. So it's between those two groups, you basically have where they got all their information when it comes to creating a government, creating a religion, creating everything mixed into one. The Greek cities brought ideas like citizenship, democracy, and rational inquiry, basically like the court system. This later would become the court system and like all government bodies, which would then become the Roman Republic. So the Greeks were Roman, I don't want to say this. I keep going down this road, but I don't want to say it. Okay, the Greeks were the Romans' teachers. Okay, this gives you a little bit of understanding of how Greece conquered Rome. Much of what we call Roman culture had its root in Greek civilization. So reinterpreted through Roman ambition and as I said it before, the Etruscans. So, okay, that's what I have for you today. So I'm going to go over it really fast, some of the things that we talked about. So where did Rome come from? It basically came from a myth, or at least that's how we know the origin story. The origin story is a myth based on Romulus and Remus, a set of twins that were raised by wolves because their evil uncle wanted to kill them. So their mother put them in a basket, shipped him down the river. She was a virgin who had a child because of Mars. Okay, so that's a time told for a long time. Rome itself came from a strategic hilltop settlement, growing from scattered huts and cities and stone. Or was it? Again, we don't exactly know. There's no actually telling of how it was actually structured. As historians, the best we can do is assume that we know what's going on and make that the baseline. And as new things come in, we change that baseline based on what we find. It's basically how it comes. So, and the Roman culture, the core of Rome, came from a mixture of all those around them. The Etruscans, the Latins, and the Greeks all came in as a fusion of different cultures and such. So I've got an engagement question. I want these in the comments below. Please leave me a comment or send me an email. What part of Rome's founding story seems most fascinating to you? Which one? What part? The legend, the architecture, the blend of cultures? Now, we're going to go into this a little bit more, but I'd like to hear about it now, what your thoughts are, because the next time we meet about Rome, we're going to be talking about the early republic and how it formed and how all of these cultures merged into one through warfare and through murder. That's right. And I'm not talking about Caesar. That's well afterwards. That's way afterwards, hundreds of years afterwards. I'm talking about early Rome. murder is what starts off the whole Republic. Can't wait to tell you about it on Thursday. I keep saying Monday and Wednesday. I apologize for that. Thursday. Thursday is when we will talk about it. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you then. Take care, everyone. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.